Good morning, Damien, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Anne. Good morning, everyone.
So you are from Killarney HR and Payroll, and you're going to go through some HR issues for reopening. Is that right?
That's right, Anne. Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you. I'll let you go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Okay, folks, hi everyone. My name is Damien McCarthy, Killarney HR and Payroll, Human Resource Management Consultancy and Payroll Outsourcing Service. First of all, adjusting to the new normal. For businesses reopening and adjusting to the new normal, there are a number of things that are important to take into consideration as the country and economy is reopening. We will have to work and operate alongside this virus and operate differently than we did before. There are a number of points to be made and a number of things that businesses need to focus in on. And I suppose more especially as employers, there are specific responsibilities during these times. Health and safety obviously is the most important one. While laws have not changed, the environment in which we're going to be operating is going to be a much more threatening one, and things are constantly going to be evolving. I suppose both employers and employees have responsibilities, and that's worth noting as well, and I'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. Businesses need to plan strategically, and I suppose all succession planning, contingency planning, and business continuity planning needs to make sense with the business strategy. I suppose policies and procedures need to be communicated to employees, and as much information and I suppose flexibility needs to be allowed inside in these policies and procedures that are going to be communicated to your staff. There are a number of attributes that are very important as business owners and employers at the moment. Communication, flexibility, patience, compassion, and understanding are going to be very important attributes. We're all going through this together. So it's important that we understand one another, that we support one another, that businesses support one another, and that employers support their employees and their circumstances. Equally so, it's also very important that employers communicate to their employees that these attributes need to be shown by them as well. It's not just compassion and understanding, patience, flexibility. They're going to be very, very important attributes throughout the next couple of months, because during a pandemic, things will consistently and continuously change. So we're going to have to learn and adapt and react very quickly over the next couple of months to, I suppose, guidelines being changed all the time, the way in which businesses are run and operated being changed on an ongoing basis. Just to zone in very quickly on the employer's responsibilities as regards health and safety. So you need to look after the safety, health and welfare at work of your employees. Employers should be carrying out risk assessments to identify the risks of a coronavirus outbreak and implement steps to minimize that risk. You need to continue to monitor the situation and constantly review it. And employers should have a plan setting out the steps that they are taking to try and protect against an outbreak at work, and what steps should be followed if there is an outbreak. Just moving on, and this is important, the employee too has responsibilities under law. And I suppose how and when employees would report symptoms, for example, or maybe if they were in contact with someone who was diagnosed, if they were to travel outside the region, those type of things. If I suppose the policy and how an employee has the responsibility to report and communicate those things, and if an employee wasn't to do so, that could have devastating effects where there could be an outbreak in the workplace, and that could impact on fellow workers and obviously the public and customers as well. So it's very important that as employers, businesses now get a policy. I suppose if they haven't already got a policy ready, they should be working hard on getting this ready now. because planning is very important. So a policy should be flexible and should be able to adapt. So there should be, plan A, plan B, plan C, because things are constantly going to be changing and evolving over the next few months as we work alongside this virus. So what needs to be included? Well, minimising exposure to COVID-19, taking guidance from the correct sources is very important. And I suppose showing your staff in a policy that that's what you're doing, you're taking guidance from the correct sources. For the resumption of work after a period of closure, training is going to be very important. Your employees are going to be operating in a different environment now, so many inductions should be considered. Clear and constant and ongoing positive communication is going to be key, because a business won't operate successfully if the employees are unclear or if you're not prepared. So cross-training is also another very important, I suppose, aspect of keeping your operations being successful during this period as well, because there may also be a high rate of absenteeism inside in workplaces for any businesses operating over the next few months. So consideration for interim and relief workers should also be considered, because there can be, I suppose, a number of different scenarios and good reasons why employees may not be able to attend work, during a global health pandemic. You should include, how managers or managing people working from home. I suppose there are legal obligations there for the employer as well, and a very clear home working, remote working, teleworking policy should be developed if you have any of your staff now operating remotely. Also very important, involve your workers in this policy and in the ongoing risk assessments that you're carrying out, because some of the best input that you will get will come from the employees and the workers on the ground. So they should have an input, and there should be an ongoing communication between employers, management and their staff. You should also be including taking care of workers who've been ill or suffered loss. So there are a number of different circumstances that can impact on different people over the next few months. There may be stigmatization there. There may be some stress, mental health issues, people coming in from different circumstances and family backgrounds. So, we're all in this together, and I suppose compassion and care and understanding needs to be shown, but not only by the employer, but by employees too. So it's important to instill that kind of togetherness within your team, because that also rubs off on your customers and on your public as well. You need to plan and learn for the future. So it's really important that real-time information in line with your business strategy is taken into consideration now, because employers and businesses are going to have to react promptly. So flexibility is required as regards rostering. Looking at your payroll costs and breaking things down on a week-to-week basis, getting the right financial advice from financial experts such as your accountants and financial advisors is very important. Staying well informed and staying up to date is very important, again from legitimate sources, and seeking expert advice from professionals in their chosen field. And I suppose all this should be detailed inside in your policy as you're operating during the pandemic. Your employees need to see that you are well informed, that you have a plan in place, and that you are able to react to different circumstances, and that you're carrying out risk assessments. I suppose employees who are returning to work, some of them may be frightened, some of them may be scared, some of them may be unsure. So you need to reassure them and show that you have a plan in place, and that you're willing to make changes and adapt to the changing circumstances over the next few months. Very quickly, I just want to touch on, I suppose, no employment law changes have happened during this. Employment legislation remains the same. The only one thing that has happened is redundancy legislation has been put on hold. So it's something to keep an eye on. It's only on hold, and the release button is going to be pressed at some stage. So just something to keep an eye on with regard to laid off staff. Working from home and being prepared. For some businesses in the retail and hospitality sector, I suppose certain roles such as the office-based roles, administrative roles, sales, marketing and so on, accounts, it may be more acceptable to take them out of harm's way and operate a home working
Just
scenario.
a 2-minute warning there, Tony. Sorry to interrupt.
Thanks, Anne. So with regard to home working, health and safety is obviously very important from a legal point of view. Working hours, data protection, again, when a changing environment where they're not in a workplace anymore, but they're operating their work from home, data protection and confidentiality, it will become more difficult. And again, monitoring employees. So, a clear, concise policy on home working needs to be developed with timelines as well, because there needs to be a time frame put on when the home working arrangement will be reviewed. And if you want to bring employees back into the office, you want to have that right. Also, you may have to look at expenses. Just looking there at the $3.20 per day tax-free allowed expense there towards electricity, light and heat costs. It may be a tidy payroll addition. So getting this kind of information and putting it into a policy will make things a lot easier and won't leave things up in the air going forward. And, again, it can make your operations a lot more easier over the next few months. I just want to, I suppose, coming to the end of this, touch on 10 points for employers to look out for. Number one, where employers offer return to employment to employees and it is then refused, it's important that this is documented. So again, this is about not leaving things up in the air, because some employees will be making different decisions. If you look at point 6 here, there's the €350 problem. I suppose, employees receiving €350 a week at the moment, but there is going to be a tapering. So I suppose patience is required as well. As we move into June, some tapering may start on that $350 payment, so it may fall back into where point number 1 becomes a lot more easier to manage, because at the moment, some employees are refusing to return to work, so it's quite difficult for employers. Number 2 is medical advice. As I've mentioned, every business should have an occupational health therapist advice at their disposal. That is very important. Employers need to look out for mothers returning from maternity leave, because the laws are the same, but the environment now is very different. So it's tricky to return someone coming off maternity leave into the same conditions. Bank holiday accruals, I suppose all laid off staff are entitled to bank holiday accruals for 13 weeks within the first 13 weeks of being laid off. So there should be or will be some backdating costs here to keep an eye on. Obviously, number 6 there, keep an eye on the tapering. There will be announcements on that over the next few weeks. Number 5 there, carers' underlying health conditions. I suppose anyone who's a carer of someone who has health concerns during this pandemic, someone indeed, an employee with underlying health conditions themselves, compassion and understanding must be shown from the employer. Number 7 and 8 there, to go back to the points, employment law has not changed. The only little change, or I suppose just being put on hold at the moment, is redundancy legislation. So keep an eye for updates on that. Number 9, getting back again, real-time information, payroll costs, overheads, outgoings, cash flow, and the adaptation of a HR policy to allow for swift responses from the business and its people in circumstances that are going to frequently change over the next few months. So it's important that everything is kind of strategically put in line and operated maybe on a week-to-week basis, where normally we would have been used to maybe look at things on a monthly or quarterly or annually based scenario. And the last point there, home working. It's important that time deadlines, the right kind of policies that are tailored correctly for your business with legal compliance assurance are included inside in your policies going forward. Once again, as in point 7, all of the above, as well as all the usual employment relations, are subject to the same unchanged employment law, with the exception of redundancy legislation being put on hold. But the release button is going to be pressed on that at some stage. So very much so, look out for the redundancy legislation release button being pressed, and the tapering on the wage subsidy schemes and PUP payment. Look, it's important that businesses have succession contingency and business continuity plans in place. It's more important now than ever that they look after their legal requirements, because businesses are operating, I suppose, in more difficult circumstances. But get the right advice from the right professional in the chosen fields, and the very best of luck. I suppose if we can all work together here in this county, we can get through this. And well done on everything you've done so far. And thanks for listening this morning. Damien McCarthy, Killarney HR and Payroll. Thank you.